This book is that book. There is no better book that we could have chosen for January 2019. This book is insanely good on so many levels because it covers so many things that I think are so important about living as a human being. Okay, so let's cover like what this book is basically about. David Goggins was a guy who grew up in a poor neighborhood in Indiana, and he was raised by a father who was essentially like a gangster. The father ran a roller skating rink where he laundered money, pimped out girls, and he basically enslaved this much younger woman to be his wife and do everything for her. And he had his kids, which was David and his brother, working in the roller skate rink at a very young age for really long hours. He regularly beat David, and the book goes into that. David also had problems in school. He had a lot of emotional issues. It was a really, really tough upbringing that I think would challenge anybody's idea of like a very hard upbringing. And so he goes through this in Indiana, and he has dreams of joining the military, but he's massively overweight. You can see it, and we're going to pull up his Instagram. You can see it in some of his pictures, where he shows these like before pictures. So here's a really good one. So this is legit David Goggins back then. This is pre military, and he was cleaning carpets, and he was going into like restaurants trying to get rid of cockroaches. Like, well, that was what his job was. And so he had dreams to join the military, but he just couldn't get after it. And he found something in himself to try to join the Navy because he saw a program, actually, and I think it was this program on YouTube. There's a really cool program of like Bud's Class, and they cover like the whole thing that they did. I don't know if this one's it. This is probably it. This is actually worth the watch if you ever like have the time and you want to go like into like the shadow realm of YouTube. Bud's Class 234 full HQ documentary. This was uploaded pretty recently. This is a crazy trip through the Navy SEALs and just like what they have to go through, and what it takes. And so he watched this on like the Discovery Channel, and like this guy like working to like clean up cockroaches in hotels and restaurants. He watched this on Discovery Channel. It's like, I'm going to become a Navy SEAL. He's like, I'm going to do it. He goes into the Navy SEAL recruiter's office or the Navy office, and they laugh him out of the place, right? They're like, dude, come on. Like, there's no way you're going to be a Navy SEAL. This is not going to happen. One of the overarching things that happens in this book is that he's pretty often prejudiced for being African-American because there's very few Navy SEALs that are African-American. I think he was only the 30th person to graduate ever, or 35th person to graduate ever as a Navy SEAL. So the guy is like, okay, so what would I have to do to become a Navy SEAL? They say, well, you got to lose 100 pounds in 3 months to just even qualify. He does. he loses 100 pounds in 3 months. He starts, and it's an incredible story of how he does it. He starts by just walking because he can't run because he's too fat to run. And he starts walking, and he can only walk a little bit. And then he like comes back, he fails, and he comes back and he has to drink down a chocolate milkshake because he's so depressed. So he just gets up and does it again, keeps doing it. And eventually he's running. And then he's running more, and he's running more and more. And sure enough, he qualifies for the Navy SEALs. And he goes into Bud's class. And Bud's is no joke. This is maybe some of the hardest training out of any military in the world. The Navy SEALs are regarded as one of the best communities of soldiers ever in existence. The stuff they have to do is insane over a 6 to 9 month course where they're doing cold water training. They're doing like all sorts of like staying up for all this time, like getting hypothermia, getting hosed down while doing push-ups, just crazy stuff. I mean, it's insane how hard this is, okay? But it all culminates in this thing called Hell Week. And Hell Week is this 7-day long session where you don't sleep and you train the entire time. And there's a massive amount of people that get out during Hell Week. So it's something like like maybe 80% of the class drops. You might start with like 140 students, and you'll end up with like 20 or 30 after Hell Week. They'll all quit because that's the only way you get out is that you quit. You have to go and you have to ring a bell. And once you ring a bell, you're out. And like the instructors are always telling you like, hey, like if you want to be warm, you can put some blankets on, you go home to your wife, whatever, like go enjoy yourself. You don't have to be through this. Like, don't do this. Like, why are you doing this? Like, why should this happen? And you're constantly sort of like taunted to get out of Hell Week and go home. And so going through this is unbelievably difficult. It's unimaginably difficult. It's more difficult than anything that most of us can even conceive doing. David Goggins has to do this, but he gets injured, which happens a lot in buds. So if you quit, you're out. You can never rejoin again. If you're injured, then you can get what's called rolled back, which means you go into the next class like 6 months later. So David Goggins gets rolled back on his first Hell Week. He gets like double pneumonia, stress fractures, and broken legs. I think is the first thing. He's running, and he's still doing it. He's still like running 10 miles a day on 2 broken legs that he just straps into his boots and runs around. This guy is like completely bananas. And I'm skipping over so much in this summary of like the mindset that it took to do this. And he outlines all that. He like outlines all of the mindset that it took to do this and like what he was thinking about. So this guy is like rolled back from Hell Week, so he's got to go in again. He got to go in a second time to Hell Week, right? Like most people, they can't even do this like the first time, and so he goes into Hell Week again. This guy goes into Hell Week again, right? He's dealing with this a second time, and sure enough, he gets rolled back a second time. So he gets injured again in his second Hell Week. And the Navy goes, okay, dude, like you can come back a third time because you got injured, but that's it. That's going to be your last time. You can't go through Hell Week again after that. So this dude goes into Hell Week a third time. He goes into buds a third time, okay? Like, he goes through 3 Hell Weeks. Like, and, okay. And so, like, passes it. He makes it through his third one and joins the Navy SEALs, top of his class, and becomes honored enlistman. So it's just super big honors, like whole thing, and becomes one of the best operators that the Navy SEALs have ever known. But he doesn't stop there. He then goes and decides that while being a Navy SEAL, he basically his entire goal is to train his mind to be hard. He wants to be a harder individual, and he's constantly trying to aspire to these things. So he decides to get into ultra marathoning. So ultra marathoning is no joke, all right? So like the big thing that he did in the first half of the book is the Blackwater ultra marathon, which is a 150-mile run through the Black Desert. Badwater, sorry, not Blackwater, Badwater. 135-mile course in California Death Valley, right? One of the hottest and worst places in the world. Goggins will talk about this and other things that he does. But he becomes an ultra marathon runner while operating in the Navy SEALs, and also does like all of these insane things. The second part of the book has a lot more accomplishments of what he does once he gets out of the SEALs. And in general, this is just the story of a person who, through unbelievable great difficulty, got through some of the craziest things I've ever seen. So throughout this entire book, first of all, like this dude lived a harder life than like pretty much anyone that I've ever read about or can imagine. And throughout the entire thing, he takes personal accountability for everything that he does. So the first thing that he talks about as like an exercise that he's done is he talks about this accountability mirror that he has. So this accountability mirror is this mirror that it's a physical mirror in his bathroom that he puts Post-it notes on. And they say things like, are you getting after it? Are you doing the thing that you want to do? Are you doing the goals that you want to do? And I thought this was such a really cool idea. Everything I'm going to say in the next like 10 minutes before I open this up to discussion is about one concept. And I hope I shake some people up here, or I hope I make a few people pissed off, because this has bothered me for a really long time. But just in general, I think that society and like everybody it is way too soft these days. We are unbelievably we're pussies. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's disgusting. It's disgusting how much of I am too of this, right? But I think like whatever has happened, I don't know why this has happened. But we've gotten to the point where we victimize ourselves for everything. It's always something else that's affecting us, or it's always some kind of problem like outside of ourselves that we can't affect, or this hurts and you're going to quit doing this. And maybe it's because we're enabled so easily to quit things that, and there are so many support structures for people who do quit things. But just in general, the vast majority of people, and I view myself in this category, so I'm not speaking as like one of them or some elite person. I'm not that at all. I'm struggling with like, eating too many cookies after dinner and stuff. I have like all these problems, but the vast majority of people are just way too soft, crazy soft, and they don't take accountability or ownership for what they do, and particularly the mistakes they make. This book is the embodiment of that. Throughout the entire thing, David never gives in to blaming something or someone else for his problems. He always self-identifies that every day it's going to be hard. And more importantly, it's going to be self-imposed hardship, because life is so easy and it's such a gentle roller coaster that if you don't self-impose hardship, you won't be ready for like the inevitable downturns when life gets hard. And so everything about Can't Hurt Me is about hardening your mind. And even if you don't need to, I don't think anybody needs to go out and run an ultra marathon to do this. But I think to impose a little bit of discomfort into your life every day to do something that is difficult or is something that is going to take you to a little bit higher of a level will help everybody who reads this book or listens to this book club a lot. Because when life is so easy and we're kind of in a vacuum, life will inevitably downturn at some point, and it will get real hard. It'll either be that someone dies, it'll either be that you undergo some kind of like health problem, or your friends do. You lose a relationship, you lose a life. Your job doesn't go well. Something is going to happen where life kind of imposes this difficulty on you. And if you've lived a really easy life, you will, when you encounter the dragon, get eaten. You're gonna lose a lot more than if you had calloused your mind and trained yourself by being uncomfortable and by doing things that are difficult, whether they be physical or mental or emotional. That the average person who takes on this practice, every person that takes on this practice, will be much more prepared for those inevitable downturns in life. So people in our world today are very complacent, at least in the first world, at least in America, where in my microcosm. And the way that Goggins channels this mastering of your mind, which is, in the subtitle of the book, subtext of the book, is physical training. He goes through the hardest physical training in the world, not because he wants to be strong or athletic or prove some kind of point, but because he wants to harden his mind against these inevitable hardships, and because he wants to aspire to be the greatest person he can be. Or, as he puts it in the book over and over again, and I love this, this is something I've been thinking about constantly, being uncommon. How do you be uncommon? What are other people not doing, and how do I do that? And then he takes that a step forward, and he says, not only just being uncommon, but being uncommon among uncommon people. So out of all the people that are rare and the people that are doing things that are exceptional, how do I even be exceptional among those people? And since I started reading this book, I have tried to be uncommon among uncommon people. The one thing this book has taught me is that anything that I ever thought about me being like actualized or getting after it or working hard is completely wrong. And I think about it I thought about this book and I thought about every day I walk to work, and I usually get up and I'm late for my stream because it's hard. Because I work at Nerd Fusion full time and then I run the broadcast full time. I usually get home at like 7 or 8 p.m. and I don't really want to go to bed and just shut everything off. I could like some time to just like relax a little bit or see Chen, my girlfriend, or whatever. And I want to push that a little bit. So I push it. I'll go to bed a little bit later. I'll be tired when I wake up, get a few minutes extra sleep, cue like walking to work, getting here a little bit late, right? And in January, I realized like there's no reason why I can't do that differently. And like why I can't push that down to like getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning and actually making that happen. The being uncommon thing, it affects me every day because I walk to work. I have a 20-minute walk where I listen to this audiobook. And then I get here and there's Matt, right? Matt's at work. My partner, Sevidus. He's at work and he's been here since 5 in the morning. He opens the door every morning, right? There's Giant Waffle. Giant Waffle's on time for his stream every day at 8 a.m. There's Dan's Gaming. Dan's Gaming is on time for his stream every day at 9 a.m. When I walk in, they're already at work. When I walk out, they're still streaming. So being a part of that environment, it combined with, I think, Can't Hurt Me, is a huge part of why I'm getting super inspired to just do way more. So David Goggins has this thing called the 40% rule. The 40% rule is a rule where if you think you're giving 100% of your effort, and you've given everything you can to something, like let's say you're on a run and you think you can do 3 miles, and at mile 3 you're just done. Like you're just like completely down and out. You're screwed. You're actually at 40% and you have 60% left to give. So I think that most of us would probably be happy if we were even giving that amount. At least that's the way that I look at it myself, that like I think I'm barely giving 40% in most things. What would it actually look like to give 100% of your real effort to something? And are we all afraid to do that? Because giving 100% of your effort means if you fail, you have nothing to fall back on. That's a really cool thought. It affected me in the beginning of January. I mentioned this working schedule, right? And so I am working a lot of hours. I'm probably working like, 70 or 80 hours a week, legit, like maybe more. But when I would get home, I just want to shut off. And, I wouldn't want to like talk to Chen, or I wouldn't want to like do anything. And then I was like, why am I like this? Like, why is this actually happening? Am I really giving it everything? Like, am I really like stepping it up? And I decided like, no, like when I get home, I'm going to be positive and productive. I'm going to do it. So you can think about things that in your life you're giving only 40% to, even though you think that, or even 10%, or even 5%. And that if you give a little bit more in those areas, it might be amazing for what it does.